Hi, everyone. Welcome to BuildUp. Our guest today is Jasper Fu, CEO and founder of Coinsub. Coinsub is a blockchain-based platform that improves subscription payment and management for both subscribers and merchants. Coinsub's innovative technology brings lower transaction costs, wider access to merchant accounts, borderless payments, real-time settlements, and the elimination of chargebacks. Jasper has a very diverse professional background. He started off with actuarial sciences, moved to product management. He's also done yoga instruction, and most recently, he was in consulting. Following his time at PwC, implementing SaaS projects for Fortune 50 companies, he has bootstrapped his own startups in the media and fintech space. Welcome, Jasper.
Thanks, Deepthi.
Jasper, you have a very interesting background. You started off with statistics, actuarial sciences, and then you moved to consulting. So tell us a little bit about how you landed at Coinsub.
I've always wanted to kind of understand the bigger picture of how pieces move together, right? So that I could understand the people that I'm working with in my mission to become an empathy-focused leader, because I think the people are really at the core of success, right? So with Coinsub, we actually started with a team. We had worked together in the past, so we had always kept a close network of people that we liked working with, and we were in no rush. So we were continually exploring the different kind of areas and applications of blockchain technology. When mobile development came out or cloud servers came out, like naturally certain processes migrated over there. So we were just looking at blockchain, seeing where the current state of the industry is at and what things will be built in the future, regardless of whether or not it's us that do it. So we actually landed on an improvement to the payments space. Naturally, digital currency is going to become a thing. So as we dug into that, looked at the inefficiencies of transaction fees, chargebacks, and some of the merchant as well as customer pains, we narrowed in on subscriptions as a niche to tackle, because it's grown to be about $1 trillion industry. And the fact that recurring payments are actually a kind of a technical hurdle, because you usually do one signature in blockchain, you do one signature, one transaction. So to do one signature and be able to do multiple transactions based on that in a recurring period of time is kind of a technical wall that we can build around ourselves and our value, as well as the fact that even though it's $1 trillion and growing, the current Web 2 isn't really tackling both the merchants. Current solutions aren't really tackling both the merchant as well as the customer needs. They're usually doing one or the other one, right? Like Stripe and payment processors, they all go for the merchant because that's where the money is. Then you get Rocket Money on the other side of things that's trying to nickel and dime you for basically managing your subscriptions for you. But given that they're distant from the actual payment processing, you basically just upload all your information, and then maybe they charge you another subscription to try to cancel it, right? So we noticed that there was a good need there. It makes absolute sense that it will exist. And then it's also kind of like small enough and niche enough that larger existing companies may kind of overlook it and choose to white label our product rather than building out their own.
Very interesting. I've seen founders usually start with an idea and then build a team. I think you went about it in a different manner, which actually might work better because you already have a solid team in place and you're exploring different ideas where you can add value. So that's great. Tell us a little bit more about Coinsub. What exactly does it do? Who are its customers?
Sure, absolutely. So Coinsub fundamentally is a payment processing and management. Think something like Stripe. The difference is that we process and settle our transactions on chain rather than through the traditional fiat banking system. This makes it so that global payments, settlements makes it easier for global payments, settlements are quicker, and basically there's no chance of these payment failures. Like when you're withdrawing your money, you get the money automatically as a merchant, and there's not this weird 3 to 5 day hold on funds. So the way that we do this is by using digital currency and stablecoins and integrating a variety of different chains and networks and kind of rolling that all up into one smooth experience for both the merchants and the customers. So we have two interested parties, right? It's a two-sided market that in order for us to be successful, both the merchants and their customers need to adopt the product in order for this to work. So primarily our initial target customer is the onboarding of merchants, because chicken or the egg. If merchants aren't offering this as a payment method, customers can't use it, but we are very much so focused on also making sure that their customers have a smooth experience and can manage their things so that there's demand from both sides. So our current target market is merchants whose customers are already familiar with cryptocurrency. The state of Web 2, the state of kind of crypto onboarding is still a little bit inefficient. So we're going for the lower hanging fruit in our initial search for traction. So far it's infrastructure companies, content platforms that are already in the Web3 space, that naturally both sides are interacting with cryptocurrency and tokens already, but for some reason they're still transacting and paying in fiat. So to us, that's the low-hanging fruit there.
Got it. So would it be right to say that it's a subscription platform that allows people to use their crypto as a payment method? Is that a good summary of what you're doing? And you're primarily focusing on stablecoins to start off with.
That is correct, yes.
Very cool. So what were some of the initial challenges you had to overcome in order to start building this?
So one of the initial challenges is breaking out of the mindset of us as product or developers. I'm very familiar with blockchain technology. Everyone that I talk to is very familiar with it. So taking our idea and then wrapping it in a way, both product user experience and how we present it in a way that makes sense and drives value for the end user. Beyond that, it's the compliance and legal and regulatory issues and setting up the infrastructure to make sure that we stay above board with anti-money laundering compliance and making sure that we do keep our eye out as we do plan on expanding to kind of global areas that we have our pulse on different regions, their state of adoption as well as their state of regulation. So those are kind of our hurdles. It's very research heavy upfront.
So how long did it take for you to build this from the initial concept?
We are about to launch in February. We are currently on track for that. So our birthday, as I like to call it, where I pinged my co-founder and I was like, hey, man, how about this idea? It's August 19th, 2023. So we're looking at about 5 months.
6 months? Yeah.
6 months.
Yes.
Although our first client and our first revenue was in November. So it was 3 months from idea to revenue.
That's awesome. That's very quick. Usually people take that long to even land on an idea. So what's your secret? How did you build so quickly?
Core focus on value. Basically, nowadays people go and they try to build this polished, refined product. We had the core infrastructure done of, hey, can we process recurring payments? And do we have close partners that are willing to work with us in this initial stage? Can we incentivize them by saying, hey, no transaction fees, right? Are they interested? And the answer was yes. And so what we did was, instead of building out dashboards, we had Excel spreadsheets where I would manually give them the information and keep that updated. In that way, we start understanding before we build what kind of information is valuable to them. Before having an automated self-subscription, before having automated product creation on our end, we had a Google form, right? So that we could collect that same information without having to take the extra time to develop and make sure that everything works in an automated way. So in that way, we can test our core value prop and collect some of that additional information of what it takes to be a kind of complete, valuable product to our customers.
Very cool. You mentioned that you have a pilot customer already, right? From November onwards. How did you acquire them? How did you convince them to get on your platform?
So I do already have a good network in the blockchain industry. So there's people I've worked with in the past, service providers, content platforms. So I already have an open relationship with them. So there's kind of two different ways that I went about it. One is the relationship with people where they're like, hey, yes, we'll give you a try because we know you and we'll work with you. And then the other one is actually a funny counter sell, given that we're a payment processing tech, right? And any founder will know that the moment you put founder or any kind of decision maker on LinkedIn, you get 1,000,001 software development companies, service companies reaching out to you, be like, hey, here's what we're going to offer. In our case, we actually did need to use a couple of these service providers, node providers, whatever it is. But my thing was, hey, if you're going to be providing services for us, you should understand our product. So I actually weeded out who we used by qualifying them of only if our subscription payments to you are run through our technology. And so that way, as they're selling me, I'm selling them.
That's a smart idea. So is that your first customer? Are they a development studio or something?
It is. They're a service studio. They're basically a business development studio.
Got it. So, and you were the one that's paying them. So it's from your wallet to theirs.
That is correct. It is.
Okay.
We are also our own customers. Yeah.
Yeah. Way to eat your own dog food, as they call it. Yeah. That's awesome. So what's your plan to acquire new customers once you launch in February? What's your strategy?
Primarily, it's going to be through network and outreach. Anyone who's in blockchain will probably be familiar with the fact that it's a very tight-knit community, and there are so many different startups and groups that you can pretty much reach out to founders and decision makers pretty quickly. So on our end, it's just going to be, especially early on, to me, just a genuine outreach from me to the founders of some of these startups, content platforms, to kind of discover if there's good market fit there.
Your value prop is not necessarily towards blockchain companies, right? It can be used by any company that requires recurring payments.
That is absolutely correct. So our go-to-market strategy is a little different than our value prop as a whole, right? Our value prop is eventually meant to improve payments as a whole, recurring payments as a whole for everyone involved. However, given the state of technology right now and the state of digital currency adoption or lack thereof, we're going for the low-hanging fruit so that we can establish our dominance and brand in this niche before expanding outwards. It's a lot easier to say, this Web3 platform, content streaming platform uses us, and then reach out to Twitch with the proven use case and the numbers of how the savings work and the fact that basically there's less charge. The merchants get more of the cut of the transaction pie due to our operational efficiencies from blockchain.
So you mentioned that there are no chargebacks. So help us understand why that is the case.
So transactions are final settlements, right? The funds go from my wallet to your wallet. And there's basically nothing between that'll really stop it within technical reason. Unlike in traditional banking where there's issuers, banks, card networks, payment processors, and gateways where there's a lot of different ways that things can go wrong. So there's no chargebacks because blockchain transactions are fine. Usually chargebacks are supposed to be used as a last case resort of fraud or the inability for a customer and a merchant to settle their issues. But more and more recently, and especially with subscriptions and recurring payments, the rate of chargebacks is high because people are learning to use it just as a convenience factor. It's so much easier to call your bank and be like, hey, I didn't make this charge, and they'll go ahead and reverse it. Rather than look for that cancel button or cancel button for your DoorDash subscription, right? I still can't find it. I can't figure out what the account or the login is. So it's kind of a pain, but that results in a lot of costs for merchants. Now, this will end up changing the dynamic long-term between merchants and customers, where the dispute doesn't use the banks as an intermediary, but goes rather straight from merchant to customer, right? There's a certain level of accountability when a customer purchases something. You're not really guaranteed happiness, or you're not guaranteed that this will work. But also, given the security of blockchain, you're less likely to have. You have to sign every transaction. So there's no thing of like, oh, my credit card was stolen, I didn't make this purchase, or someone did lack PCI compliance, I didn't make this purchase, right? So almost the only case is the customer's own due diligence and responsibility to make sure that the transactions that they sign are the ones that they want. But as we remove kind of the customer service element of needing to be like, hey, where's your cancel button? Hey, I want to cancel this, right? Like that process being a lot more easily automated because the customer can cancel a recurring subscription themselves, then I think this actually brings the customers and the merchants closer together. There's less talk about how do I cancel it, but rather why do I cancel it? So long term, though it removes one of the methods of customers kind of shortcutting and getting their money back, I think longer term it actually creates a better relationship between merchants and customers.
Got it. Is that a disadvantage to the customer though? Like, have you done some user research? Because I know that if there's a debit card option, it's the same thing, right? Like if you pay a recurring subscription through your debit card, it's harder for you to do a chargeback. So people are less likely to use debit cards or direct bank transactions for their recurring charges, mainly because they don't want it to be an irreversible transaction. So have you seen or have you done any research on what would be the customers or the consumers' reaction to this?
So far, so good, right? Chargebacks are not actually all that common. In standard industry, they're about like maybe 1% of all transactions. In subscriptions, they're like maybe 2 to 3%, right? Or just a little bit higher. So as far as customers go, most of them don't engage in chargebacks, and most of them, most of the chargeback cases are actually a case of friendly fraud where they're intentionally, maliciously doing this, right? So to me, there's very little disadvantage to a good actor customer, more disadvantage to in discouraging bad behavior, right? You really should do your due diligence before purchasing something. And almost everything says purchases are final in the terms and conditions anyways, but people still try to dispute it. And in our case, especially with recurring subscriptions, and longer term, every subscription you sign up for through Coinsub, you have your own customer dashboard. You can just log in with your wallet and you can see all of these subscriptions, right? So in that way, you won't actually forget a subscription or figure the login for a subscription and then have to resort to chargebacks. You're aware of what subscriptions you have, how much they are, and when they're upcoming. Additionally, the merchant can't change subscription prices on you without knowing, right? So the combination of the transparency of the charges, the security offered by blockchain technology, and kind of our push towards people being good actors on both ends, I think there will not be that many. I think the benefits outweigh the costs for removing the chargebacks in this case.
Makes sense. I love how you mentioned that this will actually help keep the bad actors away. I think you're right there. You definitely hit the nail on the head on that. So what else is the value prop for the merchant? You mentioned that there's no transaction fee. How are you able to manage that?
So I was going to say there's no transaction fee for the early on adopters of us. But as far as the costs per transaction go, I'll be transparent. It depends on which network we're on, right? And non-blockchain people can think about like a Visa or MasterCard or network, like Amex or something. Depending on the network we're on, we incur relatively less costs. Like it could be a fraction of a penny if we're on Solana, or like 2-3 cents per transaction on Matic. And for us, we can actually pass some of those profits along due to our low cost of processing. So the operational efficiency of blockchain tech, it costs us less to process a transaction, fraction of a penny on Solana, or like 2-3 cents on Polygon, right? And so in that way, we can pass our savings and our efficiency on to the merchants themselves. And there's not so many hoops to jump through like in traditional processing, where you go through banks and networks and issuers, and everybody's got to take their cut. So beyond just the lower transaction fees and the elimination of chargebacks, there's a level of transparency in blockchain. So for people that don't know, you can pretty much see what's in everyone's wallet so long as you know their wallet address, right? Which is a little bit of a weird thing, but people get used to transparency eventually, which then means in case of recurring payments, one of the major cases of involuntary churn for these merchants is due to the fact of payment failure, whether it's tech related, lack of funds related, or things like that. So you get all these companies spinning up that actually their sole purpose is payment recovery. Crazy stuff. And often it's involuntary. Someone's credit card expires, or they get overdrafted or something, right? Again, lack of transparency there, lack of knowledge. So again, my hope for good actors is that people want things to work, or at least we want to promote the segment and help the segment where people want to work in good faith. So what we can actually do is, a week ahead of time before subscriptions are due, we can check into everyone's wallet. For the most part, don't get nervous about it. We can check into people's wallet and just query if they have enough funds to cover their upcoming subscriptions. And if not, in this case, a week ahead of time before payment failure is ever a thing, the merchant can send, or we can automated send on the merchant's behalf, an email to the customer that says, hey, listen, your subscription's coming up. We noticed blank, that you don't have enough funds in this, or something's up, right? So there's an additional touch point there, as well as a way that we can actually plug some of our on-ramp partners in, right? Hey, if they don't actually have enough crypto, they can just go ahead and on-ramp here. So they make that whole experience smooth.
That's great. I think that is definitely a big value add, and it's very unique to what you're building, right? Like, I don't think any other payment method would be able to provide that kind of transparency. So I'm very excited to see this being launched. So what is your monetization strategy?
So the monetization is very, very, very simple at first, right? So as a payment processor, we take a percentage of the transaction plus a fixed fee. And so for example, a Stripe might take 3% plus 30 cents, depending on the size of the transaction. Our initial go-to market pricing is just a flat 1% plus 10 cents, right? So substantial savings. And so for us, monthly transaction volume is the most important piece to us.
That's your North Star metric, is it? What
is our North, yep. And then the secondary metric behind that's actually the average transaction size. The interplay between the percentage and the fixed fee, depending on the transaction size, can actually greatly change kind of what those numbers look like for us.
So who are your competitors in this space?
Yeah, so we have your traditional payment processor companies like Stripe, PayPal, Square that are already getting into the payments space. Luckily for us, they've really don't address recurring payments to the extent that we want anyways. We still think they might be beneath them. So for the strategies for those existing like behemoths, our goal is to create this niche piece of technology. We've looked at their tech stack to make sure that's very easily integratable for them. So they white label us and choose us as a processor for this recurring payment rather than having to build out their own solution. That's our goal with those. We also have kind of similar companies that are in the space, like a Now Payments, that offers a variety of different crypto payments for a variety of different spaces and things. Again, their focus is on payments as a whole and tackles the merchant side of the experience, right? So every competitor that we've seen addresses merchant first for this space, generally because that's where the monetization is. But we really want to make sure that we use essentially the merchant side of things and our revenue there to subsidize the build out of a good customer experience in the long term. So that's kind of our strategy there, as well as our laser focus on the recurring payments niche and the efficiency thereof will make it so that it makes more sense for people just to use us as their processor for recurring payments than to build out their own solution, right? We got to tackle dozens of different chains, dozens of different tokens. And basically every time one of them has a major update, we got to stay on top of that. And there's like wallets are the way that they are right now, but you'll get wallet abstraction coming up later. So we stay on top of the tech changes for this small space and just make it, everyone else can just use us. That's our go-to.
So what is your vision for Coinsub?
Global payments with a side of customer delight.
I love it. That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your launch. When are you planning to launch? Are you looking to raise funds? Tell us a little bit about your fundraise strategy as well.
Sure, absolutely. So we are looking to launch in February. Prior to that, leading up to this, we've had a variety of test and pilot users across different industries and different regions, just to make sure that we're hitting the mark on the head and we know their pain points. So our late February open launch should be basically fully self-serve on recurring payments, and a one-time recurring payment is just a payment too. So our product capabilities are for payments. Our go-to-market strategy is for the subscription niche. We are raising $1 million in the form of a safe for a 14-month runway to get us towards about 5 million monthly transaction volume. And that number comes from a need for kind of sustainability for our own funds, for our team, as well as a evaluation of what the size of our low-hanging fruit demographic is, right? Like what are in the Web3 companies, how much revenue do our subscription-based companies make, like infrastructure providers, service providers, et cetera, and who are they using and how much of the market can we reasonably capture within the course of a year? So that's where that 5 million monthly transaction volume number comes from. And that would get us to essentially a break even. We are looking for active investors, right? We love people who can help us open the door. We know that network is super important. We are looking for advisors. Again, we want to build the best product we possibly can. So we're aware that we have blind spots. So people's experience is always important. Early testers and early champions, again, to the fact of we're people-based. We want to make sure that we ship a good product.
Great. Wish you all the very best with your fundraise and all the best with your launch as well. Any closing thoughts, Jasper? This has been awesome learning about what you've been building and how you built it. Any closing thoughts, any advice to people that want to be entrepreneurs?
Yeah, absolutely. Build a team and a network you trust to support you. And be good to them, right? Like some things are out of your control. Business is just business. And you remember that at the end of the day, like on both sides of an interaction are just people, right? Like just people like you and me.
Thank you, Jasper. This has been a delight. I wish you all the best with Coinsub, and I'm looking forward to the launch and being a customer as well.
Thanks for having us on.